Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Speaking for the Unspoken, COVID-19 and the Vulnerable Population. This event is hosted by the Medico-Legal Society of Malaysia, MLSM, and I'm Dr. Venu, their president. I must say I'm a very, very happy man today because we have an amazing 480 registrants, the single largest number for any MLSM function, virtual or otherwise. I must say that this is really a testament to the quality and the dignity of the speakers that we have assembled for you today. But in my mind, I think it is also a reflection of the incredible and almost unconditional cooperation, commitment, and camaraderie between our MLSM EXCO members. We have also had a whole host of well-wishers from outside MLSM, and to each and every one of you who made this 480 possible, I say thank you very much. Well, this afternoon promises not only to be intellectually stimulating, but I think it is also going to tug at our heartstrings as we try to understand how people who are already vulnerable in many ways actually tackle this whole problem of COVID-19. We will hear about the very young, the very old, those who have physical or mental disabilities, and also the unfortunate victims of domestic violence. So before it gets too intense, being a cardiac surgeon, I thought, let's sit back, relax, and have a good old-fashioned chuckle. So let me start by saying that now there is very credible evidence that although COVID spreads mostly through the nose and mouth, scientists now conclude that the greatest risk comes from aerosols. And I don't like labels, and I don't want to be one. So what I have decided is that A, I will always wear a mask when I'm going out of the house. B, I will pay special attention to hand hygiene and keeping the hands disinfected as often as possible. C, I will pay special attention to social and physical distancing, and I think about 1 meter at the very least, and 2 meters if you can. And then importantly, I think if I am asked to quarantine, I will do that. I will not break the quarantine using flimsy excuses. And most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, I will use this opportunity to lend a helping hand to the vulnerable. I think that is the message for the day. And if we can leave this symposium with that thought in mind, I think MLSM would have achieved their objective. It now gives me great pleasure to start off today's proceedings by inviting our first speaker, a respected statesman and also the chairman for the Alliance of the Safe Community. And I think he really needs no introduction. He is Thye Thye, and to address you on his perspectives of the Malaysian COVID journey, here is Thye Thye. Thank you, Thye.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Dr. Venu, President of MLSM, and dear participants to this afternoon's webinar organized by MLSM. And as has been pointed out by Datuk Venu just now, he is indeed very happy to be able to gather almost 500 participants. I think this is certainly an achievement. I think for that, he certainly deserves a round of applause from all of you. Now, my job here this afternoon is actually to give my perspective or my observation not as a medical person, but as a member of the community and representing the Alliance for Safe Community, which is an NGO which was set up by me for the purpose of helping to create greater awareness about safety and health issues at the level of the community. Now, I think we are all aware that our nation is going through a very, very difficult this period. There is no gainsaying that Malaysia, along with the rest of the world, is facing a situation like never before. COVID-19 has disrupted the lives of Malaysians as we have known in living memory. Consequently, we are also aware that the government of Malaysia, and particularly the Ministry of Health, has to undertake a very heavy responsibility to address this COVID issue. And from what I've observed is this, that the Ministry of Health put in place a system whereby we have got to undergo various MCOs. As far as I can know, there are 4 types of MCOs that we have gone through. First type is MCO, Movement Control Order, which we have all experienced for almost a month. And then was followed by the EMCO. EMCO is the Enhanced Movement Control Order. And then we have the Recovery Movement Control Order, RMCO. And the 4th one is the Conditional Movement Control Order. Even at this moment where we are now in Kuala Lumpur, in the Federal Territory, we are in fact still going through this CMCO. Now, the problem in Malaysia, as far as I know, is that we have a difficult situation in the sense that we have got to balance lives and livelihood. And this is precisely the reasons why those in authority have to ensure that while at the same time they have to do whatever is necessary to address this COVID-19 as a public health issue, but at the same time they cannot ignore the fact that they also have to address the economic issues. As we have seen for almost about a month or more of the MCO, we have seen how businesses have suffered, offices have closed down, movement of the people has been very strictly controlled. And my immediate concern at that time was actually the livelihood of the people. Because with MCO, we all know that there's no movement, they have to stay at home. And the important thing is, what about the issue concerning their livelihood and so on? So I must take advantage of this situation by first and foremost to congratulate, I think, the Minister, the Minister of Health, particularly the Director General, who I believe has, as we all must recognize, he has done a great job. A great job in the sense that from the public health point of view, he has been able to prove how he was able to address the situation. And of course, as you know very well, in fact, the various initiatives that were taken were able to flatten the curve of COVID. But unfortunately, what happened was this, and this is something which I must be very frank here. I'm speaking as an ex-politician because if I'm a politician, I think I will be very guilty, and I'm sure you all know why. Because we have, as I said, one of the problems we have is this, that we have politicians who are more interested in politicking, who are more interested, in seeking power, to the extent that they decided to have a general election in Sabah, which had resulted, in a spike in the number of COVID cases. And this is precisely the reason why, we have the present four digits. I remember at one time, the Director General of Health had actually managed to bring it down to a single digit, while we started off with the three digit, 2 digit, and a single digit. But now, as I said, we are now faced with the stark reality of having 4 digits. And we all know why, what has caused this problem. And this is largely due to the fact that there was this uncontrolled movement of the people, especially those who were involved in election campaigns and so on, to the extent that they fail to comply. They fail to comply with all the SOPs that have been put in place. Now we have a situation whereby the people are told you have to comply with the SOPs. If you have nothing important to do, please stay at home. And the people have even been told that the SOPs mean that you have got to wear the face mask, you have to carry hand sanitizers, you have to wash your hands frequently with soap, and also you have to maintain social distancing. Now, these are all SOPs, as I said, which have been announced and which have been made quite clear to the people. But the unfortunate thing is this, that had led to this spike, I must say, is not because of the people themselves. I think by and large, Malaysians, I would say, are very law abiding. By and large, I think the very fact that we managed to flatten the curve after we started off with what they call the MCO was largely due to the fact that the people, the public, they complied. The public, they obeyed the law. But very unfortunately, there are those who are out seeking political power. There are those VVIPs who have failed to comply with the SOPs, the very SOP that their own government had introduced. So this is precisely the reason why you have this spike. And as I said, this is certainly something which we would not like to see. So the lessons that we must learn, I think, from this, from the way that we handle, I think, the COVID here, this is based on my thoughts, on my thinking, is that first and foremost, politicians must set the right example to comply with all SOPs. It's very important, because if politicians don't set the example, if VVIPs don't set the example, then how do you expect the people, the common man, to comply? And the common man, if they don't wear the face mask, they are being fined 1,000 ringgit. But there are politicians, VVIPs, who manage to get away. And this is something which has created a lot of public dissatisfaction. And this is the reason why, as I said, it hits into the issue of public confidence. Now, if you want to do something, you must do it well, do it efficiently, without fear or favor. And you must set the example. You must, what I would say, you must be able to generate public confidence. So if public confidence is not there, then how are you able, to carry on expecting, the commoners to do the very things that you have asked them to do? The second point I want to mention is based on my observation, given the limited time I have. Now, I would like to say here that these SOPs that have been introduced, off and on, every time when we have the minister coming on TV, he will talk about, introducing new SOPs, amended SOPs, additional SOPs. Well, that is fine. I mean, as far as the SOPs are concerned, I'm sure it's been recommended by the health authorities, because the health authorities are the best people to know what should be done to address the situation. But what I would like to point out here is this, that all these SOPs, they must be clearly defined. They must be easily understood. And it must not be left to individual law enforcer to interpret what the SOP is all about. Now, I say this because, you know, as I said, as a member of the community, I have been hearing a lot of complaints from the public about these law enforcers. For example, I still remember the first complaint that was brought to my attention was this, that when they said, okay, when you leave the house, okay, you have to put on a mask. So you have a family, the husband and the wife, so they left the house, they drove in their car, and then when they were in a public place, they were stopped by the law enforcer. And you know what was the reason? The reason was because they did not wear their face mask while they were inside the car. So the response from from the couple is this: why is it that I need to just to wear a mask? The reason the law enforcement is the fact that, you know, you are in a public place. Although you are in your private car, but you are in a public place. So once you're out in the public, you have to wear a mask. So it is kind of what I would call, you leave it to the interpretation of the law enforcer. I think it's not the right thing to do. And very recently also another case where they say they only allow two persons to be in a car. And of course, this eventually, the minister had to come up to say, well, two persons, they have added on an additional person. And at one stage, remember the incident where they went to the petrol kiosk to fill up the tank. They must scan. And then the fact is this, the minister later had to come out to this clarify and say there's no need, because you are not going into the kiosk, you are just outside to fill up fill up your tank, you see. So, you know, these are the things that I feel that when you have SOPs, good SOPs, but when these SOPs are not clearly defined, when the law enforcer are not clearly told what they should do and what they must do, it will certainly give rise to all these problems. Now, the third weakness, as I see it, is this. Now, those who have been entrusted to keep our borders safe have failed to discharge their responsibility. Take, for example, the case of this Sabah. You know, we have a very porous just a border, as we all know. But over the years, we have been told that they are going to beef up the security in the area to prevent illegal immigrants from coming in. And now they say, one of the reasons they say due to the spike. What is the reason due to the spike? Is because of the fact that there are these illegal immigrants who have managed to come in. Now, the question I want to ask is this: how come those in authority, those who have been entrusted with the responsibility to ensure that our borders are safe, have failed to discharge their responsibility? Now, this is another issue which I feel that they have to be answerable. And then another point which I want to mention here is also another weakness, as I see, is that there's a failure on the part of the government to address the issue of overcrowding prisons and immigration detention centers. Now, this is not a new problem. Now, I personally have raised this problem several years ago, even well before COVID came into the picture, because we have a very serious problem in the country, which in fact, there were many, in fact, some members of parliament had actually raised this issue to say that this business of this problem of overcrowding in prisons, it can lead to a lot of health problems, which if they are not properly addressed. But of course, over the years, nothing was being done. And that's the reason why now we are being told, one of the reasons why there's a spike is because of overcrowding in prisons, overcrowding in immigration detention centers. Now, I just want to share with you, at the moment, as at the 1st of July 2020, we have about 60,983 inmates in our prisons all over the country. And out of the 60,983, 13,319 are the foreigners, 20%. Whereas the capacity of the prison, can only accommodate 47,650 inmates. But now we are burdened with 60,000. Just imagine what the problem is, how immense the problem is, and why, because of this, it has led to a spike in the cases. The immigration detention center, this is where they are supposed, when they carry out a raid, when they detain these illegal immigrants, they are being put in the immigration detention centers. As at the 1st of July, we have 15,163, illegal immigrants. But the capacity of our immigration detention centers in the country can only accommodate 12,530. So this is a problem which I felt that the government should have addressed it. And if they had done it years before, this problem would not have aggravated into becoming just a problem today. And another weakness, as I see, I think, is the question of community transmission. Now, the Director General of Health had once, in his press conference, had pointed out, the Ministry of Health is very concerned about community transmission. And this is a case where, for example, those people who are infected, they are allowed just to go around, and they are the ones who are responsible for the transmission. I do not want to go into the details. I'm sure all of you are fully aware. Now, how do we address this question of community transmission? Now, my point of view is, other than enforcing these MCOs, I think what is very important is the question of community empowerment. I think we need community empowerment. And community empowerment is something that I am trying to promote through my NGO, Alliance for a Safe Community. I'm working with a number of other NGOs in the country to ask them to come forward to assist in educating the public, including the vulnerable, about what needs to be done to prevent the further spread of COVID. And this empowerment should involve, I would say, every section of the community. In the past, we were told the doctors, the nurses, the police, the military, they are all supposed to be the front liners. Now, we are all aware of that. And I must say, I must pay compliment to them. They have done a great job as far as the front liners are concerned. I think they have managed to make a lot of these sacrifices. They have to battle stress. They have got to battle this fatigue, to help address those patients that have been brought in. And they have done a great job. Now, I think the time has come. The time has certainly come for the people themselves to be the front liners. Every one of us must be a front liner now, which means that all the NGOs, every one of us, every civic-minded citizen in the country, they must be prepared to come forward and say, I must do my part to help in the fight against COVID. Because at the end of the day, if we don't do our part, of course, we cannot expect the government to shoulder the responsibility alone. I tell you, no government, irrespective of how powerful it is able to solve this problem on its own. So you need the involvement of the community. I'm very happy, for example, MLSM, as an NGO, you are doing your part. You are doing your part to help fight the fight against COVID by educating the vulnerable, by giving them info, sharing with them the information that they need, so that they become more aware. They will become fully aware of their responsibility, and by so doing, they can also be a front liner. Now, the other point which I think is very important is the public, to the public, as far as public is concerned, is the question of self-discipline. As I said, it will not be fair for me to only address issues concerning the government, where I believe the government has failed, despite the fact that they are doing their very best now to address the situation. Now, we could have done better. We could have done better in the fight against COVID had we taken into account some of the issues which I raised a short while ago. Now, as far as the public is concerned, what is the issue? The issue to me is self-discipline. Self-discipline is very important. As Dr. Venu, you yourself have said, you mentioned that when you leave your home, you make sure your mask is on. You make sure you carry a hand sanitizer. When you are at a meeting, you make sure you maintain social distancing. Now, this is what I call it self-discipline. Self-discipline is so crucial, so important, that I feel that there are still segments of our population who are not able to enforce self-discipline. Because every day I see that there are at least 100 to 200 these people who are, who are being, issued with summons. Why? For example, as simple as this issue, wearing face masks. There are still people who don't wear face masks just in public. And I think there's no reason for them not to do so. Again, as I said, it's a question of self-discipline. Now, I don't know how much time do I have now, Dr. Venu, how much time I have?
Probably a minute.
Oh, just a minute, I see. Okay. Now, just before I conclude, I think allow me to make my concluding remarks, which I think is very important. Now, I have worked on this since this last night, and I believe, I hope you can give me a bit of time to just to share it with you all. Now, as I ponder over this pandemic and the disaster it has wreaked on the world, I cannot help thinking of the spiritual lessons it brings to all of us. It is as though nature is telling us to listen to its plaintive cries. Nature wants us to pause our work, our play, and our social life and ponder over the matters that we have been doing wrong or have been neglecting. It wants us to ponder our killings, our selfishness, our destruction, our lack of compassion, and our absence of love. It wants us to stop our destructive behavior and change our ways. This pandemic is also an opportunity for us to do the things that we always had wanted to do, but kept putting off because we were otherwise too busy with our lives. This is the time for us to reflect. This is the time for us to rethink. This is the time for us to reorganize. And this is the time to revise our priorities. And one last thing I want to mention here is this. I read from an article recently of enlightening views on COVID-19. And this was a comment made by Bill Gates. I'm sure we all know about Bill Gates. To some extent, I agree with him. He said that COVID-19 was a reminder to mankind in many ways of the things we have neglected as we exist on this earth. He has also been quoted as saying that borders between nations have little value as this virus does not need an international passport. COVID-19 is a powerful reminder to us of how precious our health is. And if we don't take care of it, we will reach a point of no return. It has also reminded us not to be egoistic. Egoism is a problem that we face. And no matter how great we think we are, a virus can bring our world to a standstill. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Tan Sri, for that brilliant, frank, no holds barred, passionate assessment of Malaysia's COVID journey. I think to give you 10 out of 10, let me ask you one sensitive question. And that is, what do you think it will take for those who walk the corridors of power to realize that time has come to put country above self?
Well, as I said just now, I am addressing this webinar as an ex-politician. I'm very frank here because if I am still today a politician, I will feel very guilty. And I'm sure you understand why. Now, if you ask me, I think what is most important is this. One of the biggest failures of politicians from my perspective is this, that their craze for power, has really, led them to do a lot of things that are not in the interest of the people and the nation. Their crave for power is so great that they think that power is something that they cannot do away with. And it is because of that they have gone about doing things by ignoring the wishes of the people. For example, as far as I know, there are so many issues, so many problems besetting our nation, apart from the issue of COVID, apart from the issue of public health, the sufferings of the people, the difficulty, the hardship of the people. Now, these are the things that they should have addressed their minds, and not only to think of power. And I think the worst thing is this, when during times of crisis like this, there is no reason why they can't even put aside their political differences. I think it's very important. We are facing a national crisis today, a crisis of public confidence, a crisis that can affect the livelihood of the people, the lives of people. Why can't we put aside our politics and work for the interest of the nation? And I'm indeed very happy that our young Di-Pertuan Agong had done the right thing when he said, we cannot allow emergency in our country. No way, we must allow it. If that is the way to address COVID, then I think that is not the answer. Because you don't need an emergency to address COVID. We have a person like Tan Sri Dr. Hisham, who has done a great job with his team, the frontliners. They are able to do it. Only thing is this, politicians must set the right example. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tan Sri. I don't think MLSM could have hoped for a better beginning to this webinar. With all our heart, we say thank you very much for taking the time and being with us today. And we hope to see you on some future webinars again. And we look forward to being a friend of Tan Sri Leelam Thye. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before I hand over to Dr. Geeta, who's the next moderator, let me tell you a couple of my own thoughts. I have been a clinician for 30 years, and sometimes it amuses me, sometimes it annoys me, sometimes it confuses me when I do sense a little bit of suspicion and maybe, let's say, disdain even when the public rant about doctors and lawyers on the social media. But without reservation, let me tell you that when good doctors and good lawyers get together, the opportunity to do something great is always there. And I think the Medico-Legal Society of Malaysia is a wonderful example of that kind of cooperation. And so let me leave you with this favorite quotation of mine, which is, your religion is what you do when the prayer is over. I think in Malaysia, we are extremely fortunate that we pray in different styles and in different languages. But when that prayer is over, let us all put our hands together and join in the religion of kindness, of compassion, of caring, of empathy, of philanthropy, of whatever it takes for us to realize that being human is more important than just a human being. With those parting words, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you have a brilliant rest of the seminar, and I very happily hand over the floor to Dr. Geeta Vadivel, who is also the Assistant Secretary Medical of MLSM, to carry on with the next session. Thank you, everyone, and hope you enjoy the whole webinar. Thank you.